Look, I criticized the first season of Rings of Power pretty heavily, but I've thought better of it. I mean, Amazon is a big professional operation, and I am just an amateur. Maybe they know something I don't. So, I'm trying out some of the filming techniques from the new season. I really hope this makes my video look like it cost over $1 million per minute like Rings of Power does. Sweet, Battle of Winterfell, this sucks. No, I hate it. Oh god, it's like Dreamcatcher. Okay, so I watched the first 3 episodes of Rings of Power Season 2.
What?
What is this? What are we doing?
What?
Our lives! What kind of lives are these?
Lately, watching these shows is getting difficult. Like, we joke about, I watched it so you don't have to, and people joke, to YouTubers in the comments like, hey, thanks for taking one for the team, but I've never honestly felt like that's been true before. Velma, Damsel, She-Hulk, pretty much everything Marvel's putting out now. These shows are bad, to be certain, but I was having fun making fun of them. It was starting to get difficult to finish The Acolyte, because it was dragging toward the end, but Rings of Power Season 2 is the first time it took actual effort on my part. This video almost didn't get made, because I was putting off watching these episodes. I'm not exaggerating when I tell you it took me 3 tries to finish episode 1. I kept getting distracted. One time I genuinely did nod off. It was a chore to force myself to sit through these episodes. This season bores so hard, I'm pretty sure the showrunners are trying to take over Ba Sing Se. They're still doing the goofy name pronunciation thing. Like, I don't think you're gonna hear this many rolled R's in downtown Barcelona. But it would be great if you pressed the like button. That was solid, like Mithril. We pick up right after the end of the first season, and these writers are doing something that I'm not sure any of you have seen before. They're breaking brand new ground here, taking a huge risk, charting completely unmapped writing territory. Like, did Idina Menzel join the staff? Because we're going into the unknown. I hope you're sitting down. They're giving backstory to Sauron and the Arcs so that you wonder if they really are the evil bad guys. Yes, this fresh concept is called moral relativism, where we give the bad guys a fleshed out backstory so they seem sympathetic. Like, I was getting exhausted by the constant use of this idea in media, but now I'm starting to kind of get angry about it. Like, I'm reaching for the tinfoil because it seems odd that the overwhelming majority of villains now are misunderstood, or we get a prequel that reveals it was the hero that actually bullied them and is the real villain or whatever. It's really beginning to feel deliberate. Or, I'm trying to be optimistic, maybe it's just a shared psychosis by a group of people who all work in the same town that's full of degeneracy. Like, I mean, hypothetically, if there was a guy who constantly took advantage of young actresses and everyone knew about it, and I worked directly with that person as like a personal assistant for 4 straight years, turning a blind eye, trading those women for my own career advancement, well, I might want to view the world in moral shades of gray too. So we open up to Sauron getting betrayed by his lieutenant, Adar. As I said in the Season 1 review, the Adar story is the only one that I want to care about, and I still can't. The mighty and powerful Sauron flaccidly suggests to the orcs they might die in the war, and Adar feels for them, so they mutiny, and Sauron's blood drips down and pools underground. Then he turns into a leechmonger, bids farewell to Estrella, and flops his way out into the world, feeding on a peddler and becoming the Halbrand you know, but probably don't love. That wasn't evil, by the way. He had to do that to survive. He wants to start over, guys, but he runs into some travelers saying orcs have attacked, which presents some issues for Season 1 when the elves had not seen any orcs for hundreds of years, but whatever, that was last season, doesn't matter. The old man tells him he can sail with them, start his life over, which Sauron tries to do. He wants to go straight. He was trying to retire all of Season 1. Sadly, that sea monster attacks them. Every time Mr. Sauleon tries to get out, life pulls him back in. Oh, also, that little baggie that he carried to signify him being the king of the Southlands, the insignia that everyone recognized, that mystery box we zoomed in on several times, completely meaningless. The old guy is carrying it as a sign of hope for better days. It has nothing in it. It means nothing. Like so much else in this show, it was only there to string you along and give you the illusory impression of complexity, when in reality, this story has all the depth of a coloring book. At one point, Sauron is in disguise as Halbrand for some reason and tells Adar, "Let my people go."
Let my people go.
I want to give the benefit of the doubt because that's not like a unique phrase, but we're not trying to draw parallels between Sauron and Moses, are we? Please, please let's not do that. Or do. I could use a laugh. We're also softening the orcs, the mindless monsters who only exist to kill. No, now they are pitiable. Just regular Joes trying to play the crappy hand they were dealt. They have families now. This orc hovers defensively over his orc bride, an orc baby. Yes, you heard me right. Orc baby. This guy doesn't want to fight. He wants to work at the orc power plant, put neat rows in his orc lawn, throw the old man skin around with his kids, go to the local elvish restaurant, mispronounce the food, and maybe get a little orc missionary on the weekend. Yes, that's right. The orcs do it now. That's where orc babies come from. Good luck getting that out of your brain. Adar isn't a bad guy either. I mean, sure, he blew up a volcano and enslaved all the people of the Southlands, but he's a dad. He's trying to take care of the poor orcs who only want a better life. A dad is going to go to extremes for his kids. That's admirable. All of these folks are misunderstood. It's you guys that are reading too much elven propaganda. I'm honestly very surprised by all this because one of the writing duo, J.D. Payne, is a Mormon, and maybe I just don't know enough of them, but I haven't met any Mormons who are morally relaxed like this. Everything I know about LDS is that they have rather disciplined lifestyles. You know, honestly, now that my adrenal glands are basically fried, I'm starting to think the coffee prohibition they have might not be the worst idea, you know? Yeah, screw it, it's too late now.
I could stop whenever I want. These are just choices. Another round, extra shot, black as night. Thank you, sweetie.
Yeah, bad guys are actually good. Good guys are actually bad. That's the edgy theme that's so unique. All of Hollywood is doing it together now. Galadriel is an ambitious, power-hungry douche, even worse than the first season. After the Sauron sympathy sesh, we go to Galadriel chasing Elrond, and something I noticed, especially in this scene, was just how hard the composer is working on this show. When there is zero to care about on screen, you start to notice these things. Every scene has sweeping scores that absolutely do not reflect any of the acting or dialogue, but, you know, points for effort, I guess. In the 9 hours after season 1 ended, Elrond thankfully grew a backbone and found out that Halbrand was not who he said. Now, everyone is arguing over what to do with the rings. And again, I have to admit, some ignorance. Maybe somebody could tell me why they have to use these rings. Like, why can't they make some new ones, especially now that they know how to make them? It's not that hard. Turns out the incredibly mysterious secret method was to, melt some metal and then melt mithril into it, which everyone said was impossible in season 1. Oh, right, I forgot. Kelly Brizzle said he did try to mix them in alloy, but then Sauron helpfully suggested that he try to mix them in alloy, but in a way that works. Like, I feel like I need to ask other people if they've seen this show, because this doesn't feel real. There is no way a show that costs $700 million has a plot that hinges on a master smith who can't mix metals, and another character says, hey, try mixing metals, but use metals that mix gooder. And in the end, they use gold. No one thought of gold! So the elves are stuck with these rings and can't make new ones. Shut up, don't ask questions. And even though the rings are giving them dark visions of the future, and a guy who was totally against their use is suddenly pro-rings after putting one on, they keep them on. Oh, and that guy who was gonna throw them into the deep ocean, or kind of looks like a lake, and it's pretty still, but as he's about to let them go, a single wave from nowhere hits the boat so hard that he drops them into the boat and nearly goes overboard. Kanye puts more effort into not saying weird stuff than these writers put into this plot.
I'm not going to say what race, what people, doctor, and what hospital, and what media went to. We know I can't say that. It was a Jewish doctor.
Anyway, these are all coincidences with the rings. They're definitely not haunted or evil. So, you know, you stand there with your hands together in a triangle, as one does. This is an idiot plot. Everyone is an idiot. That's the only way this season happens. And no one communicates. That is my absolute favorite method of story conflict, when a plot only continues because everyone refuses to share pertinent information. That is so immersive and gripping. This entire season, all future story is only possible because Galadriel discovered her new buddy is actually Satan's right-hand man and then told no one. Also, I love it when a plot keeps going only because communications suddenly break down. Oops, the radio doesn't work all of a sudden. Oops, we don't have a signal randomly. Oops, the letter we sent to Kelly B warning him that Halbrand is actually Sauron got intercepted and it's not suspicious that 0 writers have come back. That's my favorite kind of plot. Sauron spends a week in captivity in the Southlands, then warps to Celebrimbor, but when it comes to letters from the king, now we're paying attention to realistic travel times and terrain. Oh, and Scamdolph and Seaweed are wandering the desert. He can speak now, but doesn't know how to use his powers and can't do them without a stick. Unless the script needs him to. He still needs to be confused about something. I mean, how else would there be tension and conflict? But they are lost. The land is a magical maze, I guess, and they are walking in circles because of the magic, trying to reach Hrun to see a constellation that they can't see back home. That's not, like, okay, technically that is possible, but you would have to go thousands of miles to see new constellations. Again, we have no idea how far they've gone because distance in this show is like points in Whose Line. Fortunately, Sloppy was back in the Marksfoot camp going through the secret book that Smurftaw kept in his cart but didn't tell anyone what was in it. And fortune of fortunes, it just so happened to have a map and instructions for exactly where Scamdolph and Seaweed need to go.
Lucky.
Yeah, it's a good thing he fell from the sky as a meteor right next to the spot where the ever-moving migrant people are camped, and they have an ancient map to the exact place he needs. Probably should have brought the whole book, though. You need that junk mail to distract the cleaner robot, otherwise it steals your babblefish. What awaits them in the desert? Tune in next time to see what happens between them and this mysterious figure.
I will not rest until I see the end of the Romanov line forever!
Okay, what else is happening? I'm actually having a hard time remembering, and I was taking notes. Yup, Numenorians are doing things. They pop up in the 3rd episode, and by this time I was barely hanging on. Plus, I never cared about these people in the last season. They are back on their island. Political games are happening, but there's no reason to give a crap. This guy's son, Isildur, is alive, even though a fiery building collapsed on him. But his horse knows he's alive and finds him in the Black Forest. How do I know it's called that?
There's the Black Forest. Nothing comes out of there alive.
Hold on! It's too dangerous. Haven't you heard the song?
They just erupted a volcano and moved in here a week ago. How do they know the legend of the Black Forest? And why is it bordering the edge of this village? Nope, you know what? Can't get distracted by dumb stuff. The writers didn't care. I shouldn't either. So, the horse goes into the forest and finds his boy, his love, in this cave.
Secret tunnel! Secret tunnel!
We have so much story that needs to be told, so much plot to progress. We already wasted a few minutes getting the horse to this village and then having it almost get grabbed by orcs. What do we do now? Oh, waste more time freeing the guy from spiders. It's Mordor. That's Shelob. Come on, it's got names and connections to the thing that you like. Did we seriously do all of this just to have a Shelob cameo? It sure seems like that is the only reason for this entire sequence with the horse. Amazing. Anyway, Vosh does make his way to Arondir because we definitely want more of him. Bit of sadness here, though. His human love interest, who seemed pretty healthy at the end of season 1, is now actually dead. And I was going to make a joke here about the orc arrow she took being coated in contract negotiation poison, but it turns out she quit so she could fight for women's rights in Iran. So that's actually really cool. She's making a difference and escaped this horrible show. That is a win-win. Back in the show, they made a giant pyre for her on these wooden docks. I'm starting to see why the Southlands is not flourishing. The people there are not bright. More good news, though. Her stupid kid Theo might be dead. Fingers crossed. The bad news is that the grief of this whole situation is causing Arondir to speak even more dramatically and also up the dramatic style of his fighting. This scene has 11 more spins than is strictly necessary. Last bit, Sauron is back with Seabreezy even though he took a brief trip all the way to Mordor to confront Adar and then get let go to accomplish, no, there's nothing No, it makes no sense whatsoever. But it's barely an inconvenience because you can just pop back and forth. And he can take all the time he wants because no one can deliver messages from the king about him being Sauron because, then the show wouldn't happen. So the smith who can't mix metal doesn't seem really bright. Honestly, it makes sense that Sauron tricks him into thinking he is an elven god of gifts.
Never again will the world overlook you as the mere scion of Fëanor, but forevermore revere you. The Lord of the Rings.
He said it! He said it!
Yeah, that's how we got to this terrible wig, if you're wondering. And they invite the dwarves, who need help. The dwarven ability to hear the mountain is apparently dependent on the king and his son sharing their feelings. So the entire dwarven race needs these rings, because they need them, okay? That's what happens in Lord of the Rings. All the races need rings, and Sauron has to be there. Can you please just roll with this? In 3 hours of television, not much happens. And I was fighting to care enough to even take notes, which I didn't do well. There is zero emotion in this show, guys, and most of the plot is held together by contrivance duct tape. The dialogue is even worse in the second season. After watching The Acolyte recently, I didn't think we could get worse examples of dumb writers hotboxing their own flatulence and producing what they believe are profound statements. But I am once again dismayed that the bar can indeed get lower. Eventually the bar will get so low that it starts coming up again, right? Like physically, that's how this has to work. Come to think of it, with the rise of Eastern entertainment, that might be what's actually happening. Huh. Anyway, we get interesting statements like this.
But don't you see? No one can give you a name. It is yours already. It is who you are. And when you hear it spoken, you feel your heart glow.
Everyone's given a name. That's how names work, unless you're in Temerant. This is the kind of sagely crap the writers think elevates the story. But if you give it more than half a second of thought, it does the exact opposite. And some of this is just thinly veiled exposition. Scamdolf is looking into the distance, and they want you to be intrigued at the possibility that he's been here before. But how can they let you know that?
Why are you looking at it like that?
Like what?
Like you've been here before.
That's certainly one way to do it. There was one scene that didn't contain bad dialogue, but it did contain a bad noise. The Elven King Gil-galad sort of growls. You know when you're reading a book and a character growls, like you're reading Throne of Glass as one does, or something else, and there is a 7-foot tall man who can bench 600 pounds, smash rocks on his jaw, use his torso as an ironing board, typical stuff. Maybe he plays hockey, or he's an ancient elven king who has the hots for an emaciated 19-year-old all of a sudden. Whatever the case, this man has only 2 emotions: murderous rage and barely contained rage. Often, he will growl. This generally, but not always, will follow a darkening of the eyes. And you might wonder, what's that sound like? Now you know, that's the noise. That is the aggressive, lustful, guttural sound of a guy who is about to commit murder. He's either gonna kill the ones who hurt his woman, or he is about to slay that. He also speaks the same no matter what. Like, if you're issuing a proclamation to a gathered assembly, I get it, you're not speaking, you're orating, you're presenting at that point. But then there are other scenes where he is in a smaller space having a conversation just with a single person, and he's still in high chant. Where are the directors? Where was the person who's supposed to tell him, hey, you don't always have to sound like what a little kid thinks a king sounds like. Not in every scene.
Give me one last chance to reason with my friend.
Reason quickly.
I will believe you when I no longer see the lie behind your eyes. Now, who is this man?
This dialogue and his delivery are Dyson's biggest competitors right now. Galadriel isn't much better. She only has one move to show emotion, and it's this. She furrows her brow into what I'm now calling Ben Shapiro listening face. She pops her neck veins out and speaks with her lips closed together. Once again, if you ask a kid what angry looks like, this'll be it. This trend in shows is getting depressing. Nobody has any real ideas, so they're just banking on name recognition. But the stories they write still aren't worth watching. Without the name Lord of the Rings attached, this story wouldn't leave the Tumblr page that it seems lifted from. If you're one of the few who watched this, tell everybody what you think down below. For those of you who skipped it, A, congratulations, great call. And B, what do you think about the trend of TV lately? If you're interested in a Season 1 recap, I did one recently, and it's right here. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you next time. Cinematic!